Hello, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Thank you, Allison, for kicking us off. We're going to spend most of the time today in discussion around the draft plan. We'll have a brief presentation and then have a good amount of time for discussion. Any questions, comments, and feedback that you have regarding the draft plan. We're really at a 90% phase where we're looking to capture all comments. We'll kind of wrap those all into a document. A final document to be shared with Commission and Council in the coming weeks and months. We're really excited to hear from everyone here today, and we'll talk through a little bit more of what, how you can provide comments. At the end of our conversation, we'll go through what the comment log looks like and how you can share that with the city and what to expect coming up in the coming months. All right, advance, please. Hi, Teresa. Oh, it looks like we also have Teresa with ETM joining as well. Hi, Teresa. I'm so glad you could make it.
Hello, everyone.
ETM has been our partners in kind of the recreation and funding side of the plan. So Teresa can answer any questions that pop up regarding that. And Anna, when you're able to jump on, just let me know. Okay, I'll keep going. So we have done a lot of work. We've been in this process for the last couple of years. That started with a robust understanding of the existing conditions. That was all kind of wrapped up in a number of different summaries and memos. We were in Fayetteville last February for a vision workshop, got to tour your park system and meet many of you out in the parks, which was very fun, and we really enjoyed that trip. From there, we took all that community feedback and identified specific plan recommendations that you will see captured in the document that we'll be sharing with you shortly. And in order to make sure that those recommendations were really grounded and implementable for the future, we had an implementation workshop in July of this year to get support and buy-in from some of the different members of staff, as well as community members that might ultimately help to champion pieces of the plan forward. And finally, we are in the final phases of the planning effort, wrapping up with hoping to go to council for approval in January of 2023. Next slide. Jennifer. Thanks. So hopefully everyone here was able to get a copy of the Imagine Tomorrow's Parks document sent to them and has had a moment to review. In case you haven't gotten to dig through it entirely, we're going to share some of the high level points here with you today. There is, 90 pages of content plus to get through, so we recognize there's a lot in here, but welcome all comments and feedback. So here's on the screen, you see the image of the plan as well as the table of contents. Not on the table of contents are all the different appendices. So there are a number of different appendix documents, including the existing condition summary memos, including a summary of community engagement, both the statistically valid survey and some of the different workshops that we had, as well as some of the different funding and maintenance strategies, more detailed than within this document. Next slide.
And hi, Allison. I was able to join now. Sorry,
great.
My link wasn't working.
Do you want to jump in and take over? Or do you want me to keep going?
Why don't I talk about a few of these, and then you can talk about some of the specific strategies and the planning principles.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Thanks, Anna.
I just wanted to point out here that this is, of course, not the first point we've been getting public input, not by a long shot. It's been a long process to get here, including efforts in 2019 that set up a framework for this overall plan with community engagement and survey responses. And also since then, a variety of ways that we've engaged the community, city leadership, and stakeholders, including focus groups, a really robust statistically valid survey that backs up a lot of the direction that is in this plan and why a lot of the content is here. That's kind of the main one that we focused on reporting within the plan that you'll see, since that was from the most wide range and diverse set of group of stakeholders. But we also had focus groups with particular interest groups, as well as ways of digital engagement throughout this process that we've heard from a lot of different people. This plan shouldn't be a total surprise about its contents at this point to anyone, with many ways that people could have provided input previously. This is just the key moment where we're delivering all the content together in one spot. But even the themes we're about to present were vetted in the public workshops this last year, and they were really strongly supported. We heard from a lot of people about how much those themes resonated with people, and they helped us refine them and work through the strategies. So next steps with this plan, after sharing it out with the public and others, we'll be presenting it to council and the advisory boards further to get this final plan comments in to be adopted as part of your overall city effort that goes onto your website. Okay, next one. Yeah. This is a plan vision that really was evolved through that process. From the very start, we started testing out what is the aspiration for the next 10 years? What is the direction overall to go in that would act as this umbrella framework for the plan? This is vetted numerous times, and many of you provided your thoughts and ideas for how to frame this in a concise statement that would direct that future vision. So I'll just read it off since it's one of the few things we'll read in its entirety here. That Fayetteville parks are places to recreate, be playful, and gather, and to enjoy the many benefits of nature and sense of community. Our values are evident in providing equitable and well-managed facilities and outdoor opportunities for all in our park system. This statement's quite a bit different than the one that was done a couple of decades ago for the plan, that there's a focus on equity in it, as well as really this intent of how your park spaces, your outdoor places, your trails are different and special than many other places in the country, and what your focus needs to be and what you hope to establish over time. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And these are the guiding principles that I'll have Allison Berquin speak to in a moment of the details of their strategies, but they really are that foundation for the plan. They organize the different ideas and help to direct what should be the focus going forward. So they are about nature connection, stewardship and maintenance, active and well, gathering and placemaking, and resilient natural systems. Now, it is challenging. There's a lot of overlap between these ideas. There's a lot of interconnected thoughts that happen here, but these are some categories that just help direct the content and make sure that we have a holistic thought to this plan. So, we'll organize our presentation around these. You'll see these icons throughout that really help give that holistic view to what the plan contents are about. Go to the next one. Okay. Allison, you want to take over from here?
Great, thank you, Anna. So the first plan theme that Anna mentioned is nature connection. And this is something that came out immediately as we started to understand the Fayetteville community. There's a really special connection the community has to nature. It's integrated throughout your park systems. There are parks that feel just naturally wild. And this ability to kind of go out within your community and feel like you're connected to nature and kind of this sense of wildness within the city is just so unique to the Fayetteville system. And so this being our very first plan theme, it's really focused about those opportunities to connect to nature within the city and around the city, including connecting to water, which is one of the great assets of the Fayetteville city and region. Increasing access to parks through recreation offering and education, and enhancing the nature within the current park system to really kind of support that ability for everyone to come out and even within the city, be able to feel like they're connected to the outdoors. Next slide. So the second is a little bit more traditional of what we might see in a park system master plan, that it's really focused around stewardship and maintenance. We heard from the community how important it is to maintain and enhance the park system that you have and really make sure that the existing assets are functioning at a very high level. And so stewardship and maintenance looks at a number of different goals for how to do that, whether it's the financial support of the parks, prioritizing improvements within the existing park system, and then having the community be ambassadors for the park system so that everyone can access and use the park system in a safe and accessible way. Next slide. This third piece is also maybe a little bit more typical of what you might see in a park system master plan, but also has a very unique Fayetteville spin to it, where it's this opportunity for being active and well. Fayetteville has a very active community. We learned that there's more people who walk, bike, and run in Fayetteville than many other parts of Arkansas in the region. And this is really meant to celebrate and provide access to all of those different physical sports programs, trails, and other aspects that the park system has to offer for both mental and physical health. And the goals within this strategy are focused around providing opportunities for everyone in the community to be able to engage with the different programs and wellness opportunities, to improve access within the parks on the recreational value. So those trail corridors, the 2040 plan calls for a trail within a half mile of every house. And in support of that, the city has made great strides to providing access through that enduring green network. And that will only help to strengthen the park system as a whole. And then also thinking about where there's opportunities for underdeveloped parks or future parks to continue to enhance the system. Next slide. Gathering and placemaking. This is another one of those things that came out through the community survey that once again was just so unique to the community in Fayetteville. That parks aren't just places for active wellness. It is places where people come together and gather and really love the community. That's celebrated through some of the existing movies in the park, through some of the arts and cultural events, especially within the downtown. People within the Fayetteville community love to come together and really do the things they love outdoors. And the goals within this strategy are intended to help celebrate that heritage and culture, whether it's the university or the arts, to provide improvements within the park systems to allow more opportunities for gathering and those sort of social activities. Other events and programming, such as providing food for races and music and theater within the parks. And then just connecting to that sense of art, the cultural corridor and some of the current shifts within Fayetteville are really great opportunities to continue to celebrate arts and culture within public spaces. Next. And the last piece is really focused on those natural systems. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to nature connection, the parks throughout Fayetteville feel very wild and natural. And with the great number of water bodies that you have within your park system, there's a lot of importance to be placed on maintaining that sense of natural, while also kind of supporting the system and this ecosystem and habitats for the future. And so some of the goals in this theme are around conserving land or other environmental objectives, promoting things like green infrastructure at a regional scale so that the water quality, like Fayetteville, Lake Sequoia, and some of those other regional assets are really enhanced. And thinking about the ecological support of the system, whether that's habitats for birds or other natural properties, as well as some of the maintenance components that are tied into removing invasive species so that the parks and the natural systems continue to thrive. Next slide. So if you've had a chance to look through the document, as Anna mentioned, these are organized around the 5 themes that we just presented. And within the document, the 5 themes really dive deeper into the how do we move forward. And so the strategies within each goal include a brief statement about why is this important? What's the call to action for this specific goal? It outlines a number of different strategies. There could be, 3 or 4, up to 8 to 10 different strategies or specific ways that you might achieve that goal. And then we worked with the city stakeholders and different departments to identify some priority actions. What are some ways we can move forward in the short term, the next, 1 to 5 years, to begin to take action and see improvements specific to this goal. Next slide.
And Allison, you've got a little bit of background noise. Why don't
I know, I'm sorry.
Why don't I take over from here and talk about the last few slides we've got going on here? I just wanted to mention that the vision map and the priorities are also based off of the analysis about the needs, the areas that we identified have prioritization because of equity and vulnerability of populations, as well as some of the funding source identified and where those lack. But this vision map is really in order to ground a long-term vision that if new opportunities come to you, funding sources are available, if you are really looking at this long-term, maybe 20-year outlook, here are some key aspects to focus on. And we wanted to give some geographic focus to it with this map. So you can see within it future trails, connections that have been identified in previous plans, as well as the Enduring Green Network that was in a previous city plan, the 2040 plan, are overlaid on this for reference. And all of those ideas may be advanced in the future of refinement through some other identified actions that were in this plan. But there's some key locations for park improvements and proposed facilities throughout this vision plan that are more of a long-term approach and are related to how I just described how priorities were identified holistically. So this isn't intended to be everything on the map. It's really those big areas of focus and things to give attention to be able to show that you're addressing improvements throughout the entire system, throughout all of the city. You can go to the next one. In addition, capital improvement projects are noted that are priority actions. So many of these you may be familiar with, that some of them are underway today or are planned for the next bit, but some of them are more key highlights that, like as we heard about the desire for more dog park enhancements, identifying some locations where that may be possible. That relates to the assessment about which parks are in poor condition and need upgrade, where there are gaps in locations that are not served by parks today within walking distance, as well as this vulnerability zones, which are about what you'll see in a previous chapter about populations that may have different needs or have a concentration of population where it would be a focus for equity. So the priority actions relate to that and are shown with the capital projects identified. That would be more near term. Okay.
Anna, I think Steve had a question on that slide.
Sure, Steve.
Just wondered if Underwood Park could be included on that list of community parks.
I think we'll have to come back to that. Why don't I'll have Ted and Allison give some thought to what that might mean, because I know we've mentioned Underwood Park, and this is not intended to be a comprehensive list of all parks that need enhancement or have some opportunities. It's more of the focus based off of those different prioritization criteria. But Allison, I saw you nodding your head like you had an answer for this.
Yeah, Steve, so Underwood Park is currently in the master process. So we have a consultant on board and we're starting that master plan process. And we have funding identified for the construction of that. So it's a current priority because it's sort of in process. Yeah.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And I'll talk a little bit here about, there's other, as you can tell, this is a lengthy document, a lot of content to it, but knowing that we need some guidance for the future of park staff and leadership about funding, programs, and ways of supporting the vision that is in this plan, there's a number of data points and content that helps shape that outlook, really some content to back up the decisions that are in this plan. So that's why we have ETM on the call, who've done the assessment of both benchmarking compared to other communities, as well as some data points that over time you can track what you need in order just to maintain the level of service you have today. That's really about some of the operational things of staff that you have and expenditures over time. And so some key ways to direct the staff to ask for what they will need going forward to maintain the system you have today, as well as over time, enhance and add to the system as this master plan is recommending. Okay, go to the next one. Anything, Alice, either of the Allisons or Ted, you want to add to this as we are about to move into getting some feedback on comments, and then we'll wrap up with some direction for next steps. Anything we didn't hit on as we tried to give just a summary of what's in that overall plan that you want to make sure is highlighted for folks?
I would just add quickly that there is a ton of information in this document. We've asked the design workshop today to kind of give us the high level so we can get some feedback from you all. I think it is important to note that this is intended to be a 5-year plan. I mean, I'm sorry, a 10-year plan that sets forth some action items that we can do in the near term. We do intend to revisit and evaluate this plan in about 5 years to kind of see how we're doing and see where we need to potentially make some adjustments, because we know things change a lot in 5 years. If we look back at the past 5 years, I think a lot of us would be surprised to see where we are today. So just wanted to note that, and oops, it looks like Joel has his hand up too. So maybe we'll just take that question. Joel.
The question, could you go back on one slide, please? The table 12, I'm confused on it. It's got operating expenditures per capita. I understand that, and revenue per capita. I'm not sure what the revenue to total operating expenditures. So our revenue is 13% of the expenditures. So we're 83% shy of what we need. Is that what that's saying?
Teresa, do you want to jump in here to talk about this a little bit? Maybe Allison?
And then one other question, so you can get them both. The next two say basically the same text, but have two totally different numbers. The next two lines.
And I apologize, Joel, we're taking this a bit out of context of we've just captured some of the tables from the plan rather than giving you the whole content here, that I would really recommend taking a look at this within chapter 4 of the plan. There's a lot more explanation and context to it than what we were able to do with just trying to put up a quick summary. But Teresa,
I have looked at it, but I'll go back.
Yeah, no problem. Teresa or Allison, do you want to address that comment of kind of explaining a little bit more about the needs?
Yeah, I can hop in. At least for that first question with the revenue to total operating expenditures. Yes, that is, the revenue divided by the total operating expenditures, and that's where that 13% comes from. Based on what we've looked at for other Parks and Recreation's master plans and other Parks and Recreation departments across the country, that number usually is pretty low, just because a lot of park and recreation systems are very subsidized by other funding sources in either the general fund or different types of revenue that come into your city. So having that be a low number, at least in our experience, is not out of the ordinary. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that we do like to track and put out there. Since some Parks and Recreation departments do like to see, is there a target percentage that they want to try and get for cost recovery for some of their Parks and Recreation funding, knowing that, again, a lot of that is going to be subsidized, and, you don't get into the Park and Recreation business to charge people to, just go out and picnic on your lawn in your favorite park. So basically, in short, it's there. That's the number. It's not out of the ordinary. And then with your other question with the park operating expenditures versus the operating expenditures, the park is literally looking at just the park aspect or the park side of Parks and Recreation, and that just plain operating is Parks and Recreation. So that's why the two numbers are different.
Yeah, Joel, the mayor had a similar question about revenue and how to approach that. And I think it's important to note that where Fayetteville's philosophy has been about is about public service rather than about profit making. And so, you can look at different facilities and determine, like, say, your aquatics, do you need to change that dynamic because of how you operate? And so it just helps you to really track and understand over time where you want to be in that dynamic. And are there certain programs you want to have or opportunities to make revenue? Like we've suggested a few in here, like campground to events that might have that would be different for that revenue generation.
Yeah, Jill, historically, we've really been more focused on service to the community and trying to keep fees low so that it's equitable and accessible for the public. And one thing I'd like to note, I guess, about table 12 is that it's a piece of a larger table that's included in the document that shows some of our benchmark cities. And in comparison, our operating expenditures and our FTEs per population, if you look at that full chart, they're very, very low compared to our benchmark cities. So it puts things into perspective of how we're operating, what we're operating rather leanly.
With that, happy to answer questions, go to comments. I'm glad to see hands up. Let's do that. And we will also be asking for specific comments. If you found a part of this plan that you want to give comments for, we'll be doing that after this meeting of asking you email those. So you can keep the kind of smaller comments together for future submission, but we'd love to make sure that our team has this opportunity now to give any responses or feedback or just kind of hear your perceptions as you go through this.
Anna, how about we just go through quickly the next steps and then we can switch over to having the document pulled up.
Sure.
So do you want to continue forward?
Yeah, let's go. Just so you know what those next steps are,
Yep.
and then we'll come back to your questions. So keep your hands up. Thank you. We'll come back to that.
Jennifer, can you go one more? Thank you. Okay, so as Anna was mentioning, we have this comment log that we are hoping to collect all the comments on. So if you have comments, you can send them to Ted and Allison with the city, and they can input them into this log, or they can email this out and you can put your comments in yourself. You would put your name in the who and put your comment in column E. And when we issue a final document, we will issue a response to that comment. If you can make sure that you put the page number that your comment is on, and if you could be specific as to, in the second paragraph, there is a sentence that doesn't make sense about X, Y, and Z versus a really general comments like, what is this all about? If you can be a little bit more targeted so that we can really answer the question in a meaningful way versus being kind of high level and broad and us not quite sure where we would need to ask additional questions or clarifications. So please email your comments to the city. They will send all of them back to us using this comment log. Please make note of your page number and please try and be specific in making your comments so we really know how to respond.
And if we go to the next slide, we've got a timeline for that effort of, we're going to be asking for comments back from the public. So please feel free to share this plan with others. Anyone else you think should be getting their eyes on this, and give comments back yours, and the public's will be due back November 28th so that we can have a final plan with revised work December 14th for adoption January 3rd.